Welcome to your weekly General Aviation news update. We have 4 stories for you this week. Unfortunately, there was another Midair collision. We'll talk about what happened. Somebody is asking for reasonably priced parking, but unfortunately it was dropped from the Reauthorization Act. We'll talk about airliners that are flying without brakes, or so it seems. And then the NTSB preliminary is out for the EAA crash. So let's get to it. All right, the first story this week is another Midair, unfortunately, that happened this time in California between two fire helicopters that were fighting a wildfire near Riverside. The collision occurred between a Bell 407 and a Sikorsky Skycrane. The Bell 407 was acting as an observation aircraft and a command aircraft. It had a pilot and 2 firefighters on board. Unfortunately, when it crashed, everybody was killed inside. The Skycrane was able to land safely, and then no injuries were reported. At this stage, we don't really know what happened and how the collision came to be, but I'm sure we'll know very soon when the NTSB prelim is released. Your second story this week is a mandate for reasonably priced aircraft parking, and I can get behind that. Unfortunately, this has been removed from the FAA Authorization Act at the moment. AOPA was lobbying for the amendment to allow pilots who don't need to get fuel or other any services from FBOs to avoid a fee charged by some of these FBOs. The National Air Transportation Association was against the amendment, stating that it was one for one class of aviation users at the expense of airports, aviation businesses, and Part 135 operators. Now, speaking of the FAA Reauthorization Act, so far there's no other words on the progress, but as soon as we hear, we will let you know. All right, for your third story this week, some airliners in Russia have apparently been flying without brakes. Now, I know the title was really grabby. According to the Moscow Times, the Aeroflot has deactivated the brakes on at least 6 of their wide-body airliners and 3 single-aisle airliners because it can't get the replacement parts. The lack of parts is due to the trade sanctions going on right now between Russia and the rest of the world, but it doesn't appear to have affected the Aeroflots much because they continue to operate 10 days a week, even without some of the brakes. Now, there was a leak memo from Aeroflot that said that the aircraft will tend to turn to the side where the brakes are not deactivated. Pay attention to the fact, especially when landing on a wet runway with crosswind. There are restrictions on the width of the runway. There's a risk of overrunning the runway. Now, they said that the aircraft affected include 5 Boeing 777, an A330, 2 A321s, and then an A320. If you actually read a little bit more about this appears to be somewhat of a common thing where some aircraft can deactivate some of the brakes. Not all the brakes are off, which is why the memo says on the side where some of the brakes are deactivated, there might be issues. This is usually done to defer the maintenance on some of these aircraft. So I think the title was pretty catchy. I did wanted to mention it because I think we've seen it in a lot of different places online, and I wanted to make sure people understood that, yes, it does sound bad. It probably is pretty bad, but it also is something that is done from time to time. All right, next up, the prelim from the EAA Midair is out. According to the report, the gyroplane, if you remember, a gyroplane collided with a helicopter. There was a midair between the two, and everybody on board of the helicopter unfortunately died. 2 people died, and the people in the gyro were able to make it out alive. It looks like from the report, the gyroplane actually impacted the helicopter as they were trying to do a turn to the left. This happened at about 250 feet above the ground. It's been quite a bit of chatter. We were at the show when this happened. Actually, our crew that was recording footage took pictures of the aircraft right before the accident. They did not see what happened during the accident in itself, but pretty traumatizing, quite frankly. And some of the reports that had come out and comments that we had read online, people were saying that some of the gyros were flying pretty bad or pretty dangerously throughout the whole weekend, doing a lot of very quick maneuvers. There was also rumors of a propeller that had flown maybe into one of the aircraft, or that the helicopter had hit the gyroplane. It looks like from the NTSB report, the gyro did hit the helicopter and then fell down. The gyro fell down on an aircraft that was parked. Nobody was hurt in that when it landed on that Bonanza, I think it was. Now, the NTSB says that neither aircraft appeared to have any kind of pre-impact mechanical malfunctions or failures, but we'll keep you posted if we see anything else. And if you were at the show and you saw it happening, just leave a comment down here. I know a lot of people have been chatting about this. All right, and finally, we have an upcoming event for those that are near the Northeast Philadelphia Airport. This is the 6th annual Girls in Aviation Day, which will include some static displays such as the C-47, some STEM workouts, and then network with a number of industry professionals. The event is actually free. This will be held on Saturday, September 23rd at Atlantic Aviation P&E. And that's going to be from 11 to 4 p.m. I highly recommend that you go visit. This is actually an event that we sponsor through Aviation Influence, something that I'm part of the board of. And I'm really excited that this is going on. They had a great success last year. I know the show is going to be even bigger this year. So if you're interested, we're going to put a link down in the description so you can RSVP. But this is a great event to support. All right, that's it. That's all I have for you this week. We will see you next week.